Most of you have spent the better part of a year looking, digging, obsessing over trying to find something and have yet to find anything. In fact, a CNN reporter actually admitted over the weekend that when you talk to people about Russia, and that's all we talk about at CNN basically, they say they don't care because it doesn't have any effect on their lives. Frankly, this administration, we've said it time and time before, there was no collusion, there's nothing to it, we're ready to move on. Clearly the American people are, and my guess is some of you are probably tired of talking about it as well.
All right, so there you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders during her press briefing yesterday. And if you take a look at what it says in the Washington Post today, talking about how the president would like to be, Robert Mueller would like to interview the president, it's about a line of questioning that doesn't have to do with Russia for the most part.
Well, we think, but who knows what Robert Mueller is actually thinking. And also, they did interview the first cabinet member in the Attorney General, who's one of the first to jump on board the Trump train as a supporter.
All right, let's bring in Tomi Lahren. She's a Fox News contributor, waking up early in California for us. Hey, Tomi, great to see you. What do you make of Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying, you know, all the media, you're obsessed with Russia. I wish you would take that same fervor, that same obsession, and focus on what Democrats have done, what's happening at the FBI, these text messages?
First of all, I'd like to say, isn't Sarah Huckabee Sanders amazing? If we're going to applaud women, we had the Women's March this past weekend. You know what? If these women really want to march for someone, they should march for someone like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, first mom-to-be press secretary. She handles this media perfectly. But to your first point about the mainstream media and their obsession with Russia, if they weren't obsessed with Russia and some sort of collusion that has zero evidence, then they would actually have to talk about the accomplishments of this president, and they don't want to do that. So they have to focus on this, or they would have to talk about the real collusion story that's happening, unfolding before our very eyes. And again, they're not going to do that.
Sure. And Tomi, I think what you're talking about is what's going on at the FBI. How did they lose 5 months worth of text messages? What did they do? You know, ultimately, what are they doing with the lovebirds there? Apparently, they're still working at the FBI as well in different departments. But that's the real collusion, and you don't see them talking about it on other channels other than this one.
Isn't it funny how, you know, certain sides of the political aisle, they usually have things that go missing in to their benefit? The IRS scandal, Hillary's emails, now these text messages. I'm sorry, something stinks here. And yes, again, they should be talking about these things. These things are very real. They're in front of our face. We can see it unfolding, and we're covering it here on Fox News. But the other mainstream media networks, they're not going to cover it because it makes them look terrible for focusing on the Trump-Russia narrative and not focusing on this. And again, if they had to actually tell the truth, it would implicate President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and President Obama's FBI, and they do not want to do that. It would invalidate everything they've been saying for the last year, and they do not want to look silly, so they won't talk about it.
You know, fascinating development as the NFL just coming off its biggest ratings, I think, since last year's Super Bowl with the Jaguars game, and the Patriots played them and beat them in the fourth quarter. That played a lot into it. And the NFL back with some controversy. They've rejected, evidently, an AmVets ad that would have emphasized the need to stand for the national anthem, AmVets being American veterans. Their decision, the NFL's decision, this is a celebration of football. What's your reaction to them rejecting that ad?
Isn't it sad that it has now become too political or too controversial to ask Americans to stand for the American flag? That used to be a given. That used to be something that all Americans were proud to do, regardless of political affiliation, race, gender. That used to be a given, and now it's not. And we have the NFL in part to thank for that. And when they say that they don't want this game to be too political, are you kidding me? What have they done for the last 2 seasons? They've bent over backwards for activist groups and spit in the face of patriotic Americans, veterans, and our military. And now they don't want to be too political? Give me a break.
But the Super Bowl is oftentimes one of the most patriotic pre-games ever, with the flyover and the flag, and they usually have the military. I think they would have done a great job just to let the ad run, because they say they can't control the players. They also could say, hey, this is a reputable organization we're proud of. Maybe we don't love the ad, but they should have just let it run and avoided the criticism.
Well, the NFL has made it clear that they do not stand for patriotic Americans anymore. They stand to bow down to activist groups. And so now they're viewing this. It's funny how they're so picky and choosy with what flies and what doesn't. If you remember last year and past years, there have been ads that have run in the Super Bowl, Budweiser being another one, 84 Lumber being the second, that have advanced anti-Trump messages, pro-immigrant messages that were very political in nature. But apparently that was okay. But standing for the flag, respecting the flag and the anthem, now that's too political. Again, give me a break.
All right.
You live in a liberal state, what's known as a liberal state. In fact, I read an article that Democrats now want to tax any profits that you would make after the tax returns or tax form. So let's talk about your state. You go out on the street and you talk to people in Hollywood, right, about President Trump. What was the reaction? We want to watch this and then we'll talk to you about it. Okay, Tommy?
What do you think about the first year?
I think it's really great. I kind of back him up. I mean, some of the things he says, or we're not on Twitter, I don't necessarily agree with all the time. But for illegal immigration, I totally back him up.
I think everybody's pretty convinced that it was a failure this year.
I think he's an answer to prayer.
Have you always voted Republican?
No, first time.
Why is that?
Donald Trump, I wanted a change. Donald Trump was going to bring it to this country. Obviously, he's doing it.
I'm honestly really happy, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 years.
Huh, not what
Where'd
I
you find
expected.
them?
Yeah.
Well, you know, there is more to that. We definitely encountered some other folks that were not as happy about President Trump. But I got to tell you guys this. You know, I moved to California from Dallas, Texas, of course, a much more conservative place. But I do have to tell you, as I've been telling Sean for the last 3 weeks, there are conservatives here. There are proud Trump supporters here. Even in West Hollywood, we found so many. We almost had to turn away the Trump supporters because we kept getting the same answer. It was actually sometimes hard to find people that didn't like this president. And that was in West Hollywood, of all places. Don't let the liberals fool you. There are conservatives here, and they are diverse.
All right. Tomi Lahren, thank you very much for joining us live today from Hollywood.